Welcome back to ELM Prep Part 5. And we're talking a little more about shapes this time. We talked about the square and rectangle last time, but obviously we have some shapes other than things with square corners on them. The most common being a circle. Well, now we're in a little trouble. We don't have a side, a length, a width in terms of perimeter. So we have to look at this in terms of either the diameter or the radius of the circle. And the politicians, the mathematicians in the past found that the perimeter that they use the term circumference when they talk about circles just to confuse things. The circumference was equal to pi times the diameter. Well, since diameter is just 2r, you could write that as pi times 2r. Or you could say it's 2 pi r, just moving the 2 around. 2 is just a constant. They're all multiplied, so either way is perfectly fine. Most often you say 2 pi r, it just sounds better than pi 2r. So we'll just go with the 2 pi r because it sounds better. All right, so circumference, again, is distance around or perimeter. It's the round version, the circular version of perimeter. Well, what about the area? The area of a circle is equal to pi r squared. And hopefully you notice that whenever we talk about circumference, whether we're talking about circumference or area, you notice that pi is involved. Pi is around, and so are circles, and so we throw a pi into our circle, or circle into our pi, however you want to think about that. But do not lose track of the fact that pi is always there. Pi is just a number. Approximately, I don't want to say equals, is approximately 3.1415 ... Quite often, they will say 3.14 just to make it a little simpler in terms of multiplication. In the ELM test, very few questions will ask you to solve it in terms of 3.14. They will just say leave your answer in terms of pi. So if I told you the radius was equal to 5, then the circumference would be 2 pi r, or equal to 2 times pi times r, which is equal to 5. So 2 times 5 is 10. So my answer, my circumference, would equal 10 pi. And you would leave your answer in terms of pi, which is really nice because all you have to deal with is the 2 and the r. You don't have to figure out a decimal multiplication. So circumference, your answer would be 10 pi. Well, what would our area be? Well, it's pi r squared. So if r equals 5, that'd be 5 times pi times 5 squared, which is 25. So my area would equal 25 pi. Very nice. Again, we put it in terms of pi. We do not have to fiddle with the math. If we did, I would do it this way first, and then I would substitute in my 3.14 if they wanted it in terms of some actual approximate. 2 pi is the accurate, since pi is just a relationship and a very long number. 25 pi is the accurate answer. If I use 3.14, that's an approximation. All right. So circles have a perimeter or a circumference, and it's pi times the diameter, or pi times 2r, or 2 pi r as we often say. Area is pi r squared, and again, when we talk about area, we have a square here. So the difference here is square units and individual units, linear units. All right. Well, obviously, the reason we can't put boxes in here, because if we do, we're losing some of our space and we don't know how to estimate that. But pi takes care of that for us. So the other basic shape is a circle. Well, then they throw you a problem where they only give you a half circle. on the test, don't assume that they're being tricky here. If it looks like a half circle, it is a half circle. This wasn't a very good circle that I drew, so let me see if I can do a better job. That's a little better. If it were a quarter circle, it would be obvious that it were a quarter circle. Or it would be obvious that it were 3/4 of a circle. They don't try and fool you from that standpoint. Well, if I know the R here, then I could find the area and the circumference of that portion. Well, the round part, if I had the whole circle, the circumference would be 2 pi r. But since I only have half the circle, I would divide that by 1/2. And so half the circle, this outer part would be pi r. But notice that I have a diameter to deal with. And since r is equal to, in this case we said r was equal to 3, I have 3 here and 3 here. So as I go around, I get the round part using pi r, and I get the diameter simply by adding 3 plus 3. Same thing I would do over here. I'd take the circumference and 1/4 of that, and then I would add 3 and 3. Notice the 3 and 3 comes out in each one of these. It's just a matter of how much of the circumference do I have. If I'm doing area, then I'm going to find the area of the whole, and then based on what portion of the circle they give me, the area is equal to pi r squared, and then they gave me 3/4 of the area here. So then I would take that amount, whatever that area was, and I'd take 3/4 of that area. There's nothing tricky on this stuff. You just have to look at it logically, look at what you have. Now if they threw something in out here like some kind of rectangle, and they would say, well, the length of this is 8, and they would say the radius is 3. Well, if that's true, this is 3 and this is 3, and then this part would be 5 because this is a rectangle, and this would be 3 over here. I would then add that perimeter or area. If I were going out around it, I wouldn't use these two here in perimeter, but if I were adding area, I would take area 3/4 of the area of a circle plus the area of this rectangle, which would be 3 times 8, which would be 24. So you just have to look at these logically, look at what they're giving you, break it up into parts, take the area of one part and the area of the other, and add it together. Like I say, they do not try to get too tricky with you here, but they do like you to think logically on this. So if I had some object that was shaped like this, and I had something here and something here, and they said this was a 3 by 5 rectangle, well, what they're telling me is I have a half a circle here and a half here, so I really have a whole circle, right? 2 halves make a whole. So I'm going to treat that as a whole circle in terms of area. In terms of circumference around it, same thing. That area, distance and that distance. Well, the question is, what's my r here? Well, I chose an ugly number here using 3, so I'm going to change this to 4 by 5 so that r comes out nice. R equals 2. So by them telling me the side was 4, well, that's the diameter. I could use pi d if they were looking for circumference, or if they're looking for area, I'm going to use pi r squared. Well, I have 2 parts there, and then I have the area of this in here, which is 4 by 5. So I'll take the area of the rectangle plus the area of the circle and add them together for my area total. All right. We're running up on the 10-minute mark, so thank you for paying attention. Hopefully this was a little bit helpful in terms of shapes. What we talked about this time was the circle and the circumference being pi d, or 2 pi r, and the area of the circle being pi r squared. All right, there's your basic fundamental circle. Hope you enjoyed this. Have a good day.